according to the procedure in force. Now, when it comes to the coordinated approach to the full restoration of freedom of movement and the removal of controls at internal borders, well, as you know, that on the 13th of May, we presented a communication on this subject, and we've been working very closely with EU member states and with the Schengen states in order to implement this approach. We're holding regular video conferences on this subject. Commissioner Johansson had discussions with ministers on Friday. I believe you followed the press conference. The Commissioner concluded that the health situation should allow a return to the full functioning of the EU by the end of June. Now, obviously, we're going to continue working together with member states, and we'll do that through that perspective. Now, member states feel that freedom of movement is one of their most precious rights, and we're going to allow Europeans to travel freely as soon as possible, but obviously the health situation needs to permit this. Now, it wasn't necessarily on obstacles in the border, but the conditions for freedom of movement. Now, there's a number of worries surrounding issues as to some member states don't want to accept Spanish or Italian citizens. Do you have any approach on that, a specific approach on that? Could you maybe tell us a little bit more about that? No, I can't comment, obviously, on the content of this letter. What we first need to do is to specifically reply to this letter. Now, on the subject you raised, I'll just repeat what the Commission has said previously in its communication adopted on the 13th of May. We focused on the fact that we need to avoid any kind of discrimination. And there are perhaps two elements we need to bear in mind. First of all, there's the ban on discrimination vis-à-vis nationality. Nationality isn't a health criteria that can be applied. You can't differentiate somebody on the basis of their nationality. This is when we're talking about European citizens. The next aspect is that, according to the Commission, once restrictions are raised vis-à-vis certain regions in Europe, well, the same treatment needs to be applied to other regions and other member states of the EU that are in the same health situation. It's up to member states to apply these criteria. They need to obviously carry out an assessment. They need to look at the healthcare situation around Europe, and they need to apply the other criteria we set out in our communication. Now, from our point of view, what we intend to do is to coordinate the work of member states, and we're going to support them with the data as being set out by the ECDC. And so, from your point of view, the letter wasn't necessary. Griselda, we're not going to start commenting on the necessary nature or not of letters that are being sent by heads of state and government. If the heads of state and government feel that it's necessary to send us a letter, well, that is their prerogative.
Voilà. Questions for Adalbert. I have a certain number of names noted down, but on other issues, I think. Athanasios, is your question for Adalbert? If not...
Yes, it is, and it's a follow-up on the opening of borders and the connections between the member states, because, you know, the Greek government announced recently that they are opening the air borders to very specific airports in Europe based on a catalog that's published by the EASA, and this catalog obviously lists airports close to known points of COVID-19 cases concentration, which means that it's just a statistical catalog and nothing more. Now, the spin in Greece is that this thing is a blacklist. Of course, it is not a blacklist, because a blacklist is something that entails operational restrictions. Nothing else can be called a blacklist. But my question is, can they do that? Can they actually cherry-pick airports from a list allegedly linked to a concentration of COVID cases, especially when in that list of the non-preferred airports, we have the Zaventem airport here in Belgium, which is chosen by EASA as a pilot project for health security. It's an example for the measures they are taking. So how can they do that? Is it even okay with the European rules? Thanks.
Okay, thanks. I think it's more a question for Stefan, so we'll ask Stefan to come to the podium. But relevant, nevertheless, indeed, on the issue of travel in Europe, so roughly the same issue. Stefan.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Yes, a list has been made available by EASA of airports which are considered to have risks in terms of the COVID situation. Now, it is up to all member states to decide which actual measures they intend to take as a result of the elements which are available in this list. Obviously, as we always have stressed in this context, it's very important that there is a good coordination between the member states, and that when decisions are taken in this regard, that the epidemiological situation is taken into account in the different member states concerned, and that there is no discrimination between regions or member states which would have the same epidemiological situation. Thank you.
Okay, Stefan, since you're here, I think Georgi had a question on the mobility package. So let's take that question. Georgi.
Yes, hi, Stefan. Today the European Parliament is holding a vote on the mobility package, and I think that's a good chance for me to ask you, where is the Commission in its preparation of an impact assessment which may or not influence the decision-making? Thank you.
Hello, Georgi. Thank you. We are always with you. I don't have anything new to say on this front. You know that the Commission has indicated that it would launch an impact assessment. That impact assessment is ongoing, in particular with regard to these two areas which for which the Commission expressly wanted to have this impact assessment, but the work is still ongoing, so I'm afraid I cannot tell you anything more on this topic. Obviously, when this work is done, you will hear more about this. Thank you.
Okay, Lorenzo, est-ce que c'est une question?
Lorenzo, is it a question on borders or movement in the EU?
Lorenzo? Sinon.
Hello?
Oui.
Yes. Well, it's just a follow-up to Athanasios' question. He asked a very specific question, and I'm afraid to say that the answer didn't seem to be so specific. The statistical criteria that were taken into account with this sort of blacklist, I mean, could that be an equivalent from an epidemiological point of view? I mean, those are two separate matters. Should criteria be epidemiological, so the same epidemiological situation, then how can we say that it's going to be about statistics based on mortality and so on when it comes to the airports?
Thank you. Listen, I don't think I can add a lot to what I had said before. Member states have the responsibility to look at the epidemiological situation, and to do that they take into account all the scientific evidence that they have at their disposal, and that scientific evidence can come from different sources. They take all these sources of evidence into account to come to their decisions to go one direction or rather the other direction. What is important for us is that it is based on a serious scientific approach here. And then, as I said before, there is also the need to have this well coordinated between the member states. But I don't think I can say more than this.